Welcome, everyone. Today we are diving into a topic that is both intensely personal and profoundly universal: burnout. Burnout is often misunderstood. Many people equate it with laziness or temporary fatigue, but it's far more complex. Burnout is the accumulation of chronic stress. It is exhaustion, misaligned energy, physical, emotional, and cognitive. It is a systematic failure of the self. The self cannot replenish in the face of relentless demands, whether those demands are external or internal or even both. Burnout is the body and the mind's way of signaling that we have really exceeded the threshold of sustainable engagement. It's not weakness, it's more of a message. Something in your life, your mind, or your environment is demanding more energy than your system can supply. So, knowing these transits ahead of time is an incredibly valuable tool because awareness itself, it creates a buffer against the intensity of burnout. When we understand that Saturn or Neptune, even Pluto, will be activating our drive, our identity, or our mental patterns, we can really anticipate where our energy might be stretched or scattered or even blocked. So this foresight, it really allows us to structure our days more intentionally, to set boundaries before our frustration will escalate, and to prioritize rest and self-care in a proactive way rather than, reactively. So astrology doesn't just predict difficulty. It gives us a real opportunity to respond consciously, to protect our energy, and to make choices that minimize unnecessary strain. By preparing for these periods in advance, we can actually approach potential burnout not just as sudden collapse, but as a signal to actually actively slow down, to reflect, and to engage with our responsibilities in a more sustainable and empowered way. Burnout can manifest in a lot of distinct ways, and understanding these forms, that's critical. So physical burnout often comes first, and it is the easiest to observe. Fatigue that sleep can't fix, muscle tension, headaches, digestive issues, reoccurring illness. It is the body screaming that it is overextended. Now, emotional burnout can manifest as irritability, numbness, anxiety, or even detachment. You may find yourself disconnected from work, from relationships, or even just activities that once energized you. Cognitive burnout involves mental fog and forgetfulness, obsession over, small tasks, or difficulty making decisions. Thoughts can feel heavy, and the mind becomes a source of frustration rather than clarity. So, that is one form of burnout. Another is existential burnout, which is, maybe the most insidious. It emerges when you feel completely disconnected from your purpose or your identity. So life can feel really hollow, and actions that once mattered now seem meaningless. So often these forms overlap, and it creates a feedback loop of exhaustion that can just feel impossible to break. Now, astrology offers a lens into burnout that is both precise and practical. The planets reveal the mechanisms through which burnout manifests, showing us how energy is misaligned, where our boundaries are overstretched, and what lessons we are being asked to integrate. So let's explore today each of the transits that can really illuminate the astrology of burnout more in depth. So to begin, let's talk about the transit of Saturn square Mars. We did a more elaborate workshop on this particular topic on our transit series. If you're an Astro School member, you can check that out. It was with Chad of Astral Integrations. But let's dive into what causes burnout during this transit today. And if you want a more holistic view of this particular transit, you can visit with that workshop as well. So this transit embodies the tension between desire and limitation, between the instinct to act and the reality of constraints. Mars represents our physical drive, our ambition, and our willingness to push forward. Saturn, however, embodies limits, structure, responsibility. So when these energies clash in a square, you often feel like you are constantly running uphill. Every action seems blocked or delayed or met with friction. So this creates profound frustration and a sense of futility. That futility, it can really morph into anger and, not just anger at yourself, but anger at others as well. So physically, the body really bears that strain. Fatigue, tension in the shoulders or back, and sleep disruption are often really common. Emotionally, irritability, impatience, even bouts of low-grade anxiety can appear with this transit. So the lesson here is to really align ambition with reality. Burnout under this transit is really exacerbated by ignoring our limits. So practical strategies include, breaking tasks into micro steps. I always say baby bites. And prioritizing what is essential and consciously choosing where to direct our effort. Patience and strategic action are not optional during this transit. They are the anecdote. So during a Saturn square to Mars transit, remediation here is all about working with the tension rather than against it. This is a time to really consciously slow down, to break large tasks into smaller, more achievable steps, and to focus on quality over quantity. Physical exercise can really help release pent-up frustration, but it should be more structured and consistent rather than, impulsive or overly strenuous, as overexertion can really amplify fatigue. So mental strategies, things like planning and changing our priorities a little bit, realistic goal setting, these are essential because Saturn rewards discipline and foresight. It's also very crucial to practice self-compassion and to recognize that delays or obstacles are not failures. They're part of the process that Saturn asks us to navigate. So by channeling energy more intentionally during this time, setting firm boundaries and respecting our natural limits, we can really transform the frustration of this transit into sustained progress and into increased resilience. Next, we're going to talk about another transit, and this one is a Neptune transit. When Neptune is conjunct natal Mars, it introduces a different quality of burnout. Neptune dissolves boundaries, it blurs clarity, and it encourages surrender. So when it contacts Mars, your drive can feel scattered, uncertain, or even just ineffectual. So you may work tirelessly, but you feel as though your efforts really vanish into thin air, unrecognized, meaningless. Also, there's this intense emotional sensitivity. There's a lot of heightened guilt and self-doubt. Frustration can appear, but particularly in contexts where effort feels unrewarded. This is a burnout of idealism, chasing outcomes that are inherently unattainable or working in environments that, drain your vitality. It feels like energy ciphering, really, to be honest. When I was going through this transit, I could not sleep enough. 18-hour days, could not be enough. So the remedy really here is, to let your body rest when it can, but also when you're able to really work on clarity and focus, deciding what truly matters and what is realistically within your power during this time is necessary. You got to protect your energy from environments or people that constantly blur your boundaries. So practicing compassion toward yourself becomes really essential, as does retreating from perfectionism and over-responsibility. I really like using the uncrossing bath and the fiery wall of protection oil during this transit. It helped me a lot. And having some spiritual boundaries during this time was very, very helpful for resetting my energy. So focusing on small, tangible goals during this transit rather than more ambitious or idealized projects is important. Break down those tasks into more concrete, manageable steps. It's also a time to cultivate self-compassion and patience, recognizing that results may be delayed or, we might have a little less energy to exert towards it. So by grounding your actions in these realistic steps and by conscious awareness, you can actually navigate this transit without losing momentum or motivation. During a Neptune conjunct Mars transit, the body and spirit are going to feel foggy or unmoored or even just like overstimulated can be a big one. So Mars wants action and clarity while Neptune dissolves boundaries, and it brings this like dreamlike current. So herbs that really ground and clarify and strengthen the body, they can be really supportive here, like adaptogens. They can really help you regulate stress and anchor that more scattered energy. Things like holy basil, it can clear mental fog and offer a lot of spiritual protection as well. This will help keep Mars, in its natural state, driven, without being like dissolved by Neptune's haze, right? So ginger is another really great herb to work with. It helps ground the body and it brings warmth and circulation. And also nettle. Nettle is a herb of Mars, and it provides, steady vitality and fortification. If the emotional waters can feel like overwhelming during this transit as well, I can't speak highly enough about skullcap. Skullcap and chamomile, they can really help calm the nervous system and tether the body back to a more centered state. Put that in your evening tea. It's really helpful. So these herbs really act as allies, and they bring the weight and the definition when Neptune's influence kind of blurs the edges and saps all the energy.
So the next transit that we're going to talk about is the transit of Saturn in a conjunction to Mars. So this is a different type of burnout. This is one where you may feel compelled to shoulder responsibilities beyond your capacity, and this can lead to a lot of chronic fatigue or physical strain. But what I see most often is a lot of suppressed anger or frustration that can really bubble beneath the surface, and it creates a lot of irritability or tension with other people in our lives. So psychological burnout is really intensified during this transit because your inner critic is super loud and it's super persistent. So the voice in your head might be saying, you have to do more, you have to do faster, you have to do better. So the anecdote with this one is really disciplined pacing, boundary setting, especially with oneself, and conscious reprioritization, let's say. So recognizing that some responsibilities during this time are like not yours to carry, and focusing your energy where it has the greatest sustainable impact is absolutely necessary during this transit to avoid burnout. So remediation during this period, it can really involve disciplined pacing, breaking tasks into, again, like achievable steps, but also the necessary need for scheduling time for rest and for recovery. And it's super important during this transit. If we see it coming, we do not want to overcommit, especially to any sort of responsibilities that are not truly ours. If we're doing too much for others, we're going to burn out. So physical activity is helpful, but it should be steady and intentional rather than, impulsive or extreme. Mentally, journaling or other reflective practices can really help process frustration before it manifests as anger or irritability. Saturn tends to reward consistent, sustainable effort. So approaching goals methodically rather than impulsively, it really allows you to harness the pressure of this transit to build more endurance and more resilience, long-term achievement. There is a herb called rhodiola, and it's spelled RHODIOLA. And this can be a really helpful herb to adapt during any sort of Saturn transit, but especially it was very helpful for me during Saturn on my Mars. It can help you sustain energy levels without overstimulating. And so it really makes it ideal for times when your drive is really high, but exhaustion is really kind of threatening you. Again, skullcap is a really great herb for this transit, or lemon balm, because that can really soothe tension and really prevent frustration from turning into anger or irritability. Additionally, I want to say nettles or licorice root can really help replenish depleted energy and support more resilience during this transit. So if it's taken consistently, then these herbs can really help the body work with Saturn's discipline rather than against it. And it allows you to really channel ambition and effort in a way that is structured and also still sustainable. Now, the next transit I want to talk about is Neptune opposing Saturn. This energy is more subtle. It's more pervasive, and also it's often like very systematic, right? Saturn demands structure. It is our job, our work, and Neptune encourages sleep and fluidity and surrender. So this opposition can really create burnout in environments where responsibilities feel endless or even just arbitrary, or where expectations are just simply unrealistic and resources are insufficient. So often it really triggers escapist tendencies, overworking compulsively, procrastinating, or even just like retreating into fantasy or substance use. So the guidance here is twofold: strengthen boundaries and clarify essentials. Learn to say no without guilt and recognize the difference between what you can control and what is beyond your power. So this transit really teaches that burnout is not always personal. Sometimes it is the structure or the system itself that is unsustainable. This transit can really make you feel growing pains. Like this is the transit that is like, oh, my body is getting older. And so we want to also make sure that we're getting enough rest during this period as well. So we might want to actually, again, here, not overcommit to things and schedule more time for rest and relaxation, silence, quiet. Neptune opposite Saturn can really, it can really feel like a tightrope, between exhaustion and overwhelm. So gentle grounding exercises such as like mindful walking or body scans or just simple breath work can also really help anchor your energy. And it can also help, separate fantasy from reality. Journaling about fears or obligations or even desires can really help clarify where you might be overcommitting or projecting unrealistic expectations onto yourself or to others, perhaps. So practicing, small ritualized forms of self-care, things like taking a hot bath. I love that uncrossing bath by Art of the Root is really helpful for me to reset my energy. And listening to like calming music and, settling into bed a little bit early than we might normally do. This is like a great time to put magnesium on your feet and just rest before bed. This is a great time to invest in one of those, weighted sleep masks or a weighted blanket, something where you can get really cozy and comfortable in bed, because we're going to need a lot more sleep with this one. So when Neptune makes a hard aspect to the sun, the experience of burnout becomes really essential. The sun represents identity and purpose, the will to shine, and Neptune really blurs these energies, and it creates a lot of confusion and disconnection or feelings of invisibility. So life might feel like moving through a fog. You work, you act, you strive, but purpose can feel really distant. So burnout in this context is deeply demoralizing because it really undermines the sense of self. So recovery, it really requires reflection and retreat and alignment with like authentic values. So when we have Neptune in a conjunction to the sun, we're going to feel this very tightly. We're going to feel this with, we're going to feel a lot with the square between Neptune squaring our sun or in an opposition to our sun. Our vitality, we might notice, is going to be a little bit lower, and our defenses are going to be a little bit weaker. This can also be a time where generally we can get sick easier. We're a little bit more vulnerable. So having things on hand during this period that are preventative for sickness, things like such as, oil of oregano or fire cider are two really great options to just have on hand during this transit, because our immune system defenses are going to be a little bit lower than normal. So again, this is another transit where we're going to really want to have a lot more rest. So it can be beneficial again here to, really work with baths, like if there's something where we're trying to create for ourselves, like a Art of the Roots Good Fortune bath can be really helpful for drawing in that energy positively, but also doing clearing work, like doing the uncrossing bath, I think is really helpful. This can be a bit of a spiritual portal, so it's really good to upgrade our spiritual defenses during this period of time. And that could look, one of many different ways. If you're an Astro School student, you can check out, there are 2 classes I really recommend on this. One is Spiritual Cleansing 101, and the other is Protect Your Neck, Grounding and Cleansing Your Energy with Love Sackhoff. That is a 2-hour course. It's really, really, really good, and there's a lot of really great tools over there. But that could look, many different ways, from taking a spiritual bath to, doing the banishing ritual of the pentagram when you enter your home. This can be, lighting a little incense, Palo Santo, whatever you use in order to cleanse. This is a time where we really want to up the ante on our spiritual cleansing, because our defenses are going to be a little bit low during this one. We want to make sure we're getting enough sleep. So, this is a good time also to maybe bring in some holistic support as far as getting our energy in the morning. A good time to perhaps switch from our normal cup of coffee to maybe like some matcha or some green tea. So we're not feeling super antsy throughout the day, and instead it can be a little bit more level, right? So these are things that can be definitely very helpful during a Neptune transit of any sort, but especially when it's hitting our sun, our physical vitality, our energy levels. Several herbs that are traditionally used to support energy and stamina and mental clarity can be actually used very well during this transit. Things like ginseng. things like maca root, things like, again, green tea is great for antioxidant support. So we really want to work with things that are going to help our body adapt to stress and that can support fatigue. If you are somebody who likes working with crystals, carnelian is a great one to carry during this transit. It's a really powerful stone for, physical energy and motivation. It's of Mars. It's a courageous stone, and it helps overcome being kind of lethargic, and it promotes action because it's a Mars stone. So that's a really good one. Citrine's also really good. It stimulates mental clarity and confidence, as well as personal power while lifting the mood and really supporting our motivation. Red jasper can be a really helpful one as well. It's grounding yet energizing, and it supports endurance and stability, the steady flow of energy. And also, finally, I think sunstone would be a good recommendation for this one as well, because it's hitting the sun. And, sunstone really invigorates joy and enthusiasm, personal empowerment, and it helps break through fatigue. So those are some of my suggestions for that transit. And then we're going to talk about the transit of Pluto conjunct Mercury, which focuses more on cognitive and emotional dimensions of burnout. Mercury governs thought and communication, problem solving, while Pluto more intensifies, pressure and exposes hidden patterns and drives transformation. So in burnout, this can manifest as, obsessive thinking, rumination, heightened irritability, so minor frustrations may provoke intense mental reactions. So the guidance here is really to channel Pluto's energy constructively. Journaling, structured reflection, shadow work, and deliberate problem solving to help transform, more obsessive mental patterns into insight. Avoiding reactive communication is absolutely necessary during this transit. It can explode. And instead, seeking conscious engagement with thought patterns that no longer serve you, right? So that's important with this transit. Our mind is going to feel very powerful during this time. We're absorbing a lot. So when our mind is constantly moving, again, that can lead to a lot of burnout if we don't take measured approaches. So it's good to get out in nature during this this is a very long transit. It can be a year-long transit. So it's good to get out in nature, put yourself, at your local bird sanctuary, hear the birds chirp, remind yourself to ground yourself and be present in your body, because Pluto transits can bring up the past. They can bring up things that we were very stuck in, right? It's our attachments, the things we can't let go. And how do we get out of that? We have to be in our bodies. We have to be grounded. So having some, sports, for example, is one way to maintain being present. So having some grounding techniques, I think, are really helpful during Pluto transits. Practicing short, focused meditation or breathwork sessions can be really helpful. It can help reduce, racing thoughts and mental fatigue. It's important to pace your intellectual work and avoid overloading yourself with information or heavy conversation. So engaging in creative expression, things like writing or drawing or even strategic problem solving, these are where we need to these are the places we need to put our energy during this transit, because it is an intense one and a long one at that. Now, another transit where we can have a lot of burnout is Saturn moving through house 6. So the 6th house governs our daily work, our health, our routines, and Saturn here really imposes responsibility and high standards. So when we are going through this transit, we're going to deal with a lot more chronic fatigue, especially if we overextend or fail to integrate self-care. So burnout is almost inevitable if the energy is mismanaged. So having sustainable routines and time for deliberate rest and physical care over this 2-year period, it's going to be essential. Small, consistent actions maintain vitality more than effectively trying to burst into, overextension. Things like strength training can be really helpful during Saturn's transit in the 6th house. So things that really help you build some disciplined energy while supporting your physical and mental stamina can be really good. Strength training, yoga, Pilates, or even just like body weight circuits. They're excellent because they build resilience and they improve your posture, and they also help you release tension from long hours of work or mental strain. Even like brisk walking or short cardio sessions, they can really help you maintain steady energy and prevent stagnation. So pairing movement with like mindful practices such as deep breathing, stretching, body scans, this can all help you stay present and release stress, creating, a sense of control over your routines, turning Saturn's sometimes heavy influence into disciplined, sustainable energy rather than just plain exhaustion. Licorice root is a really helpful herb to work with during this transit because it really supports our adrenal function and it helps really maintain energy during long periods of work. Another one that we've talked quite a few times about today is ginseng. Ginseng, again, it can boost your overall vitality and help with stamina as well as focus. And also, ashwagandha is really great. It supports adrenal health, it reduces stress-related fatigue, and it also helps maintain steady energy. So, wrapping up today, burnout in astrology is never just about like being tired. It is the echo of cosmic pressures that really collide with our personal vulnerabilities. It's a signal that our energy and our boundaries and our priorities, they're out of alignment. So astrology really gives us a language for the subtle signals of our mind and body. And it allows burnout to become not just like a warning, but actually a guide towards healthier rhythms and deeper self-understanding and, of course, sustainable growth. Also, if we know that it is coming, guys, if we know that we're going to go through a transit where we're going to have a lot less energy, we can actually plan our schedule around that a little bit easier. And that's how we don't make burnout worse. So in recognizing the patterns of energy and exhaustion in our charts, we can really transform burnout from a silent thief into a more conscious teacher of resilience and self-care.